Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm your new friend Han Chen from Technical Training Sports Center. Today, I'm so glad to have the opportunity to introduce our company's product, BMS Parallel Box to G2. Before we start, I have something need to say. If you have any question during the process of the webinar, you can just type them on the chat box, and my brilliant colleague will help me to answer this question immediately. And before the end of the webinar, I will also check whether there are some remaining questions here, and I will promise all the questions will be solved at the end of today. So let's start. First of all, I need to make the explanation about what is the BMS parallel box to some new friends. From some communication with our customer, we received the requirement that some customers want to expand their battery capacities due to increase the number of the battery. And our company also wondered whether we can connect multiple battery in parallel to increase the capacity. And this design can also ensure when one string of the battery groups has some faults, another battery string can still work normally. So we designed the BMS parallel box G1 and G2. Besides this, we also have some other benefits for the BMS parallel box, such as it can extend the system working time. Due to we have more battery modules to increase the capacities, BMS parallel box can provide continuous power during the power outage or the low energy supply. What's more, BMS parallel box can realize flexible expansion. Due to the BMS parallel box have the similar design style with the inverter, it can be mounted on the wall easily. So we can connect the BMS parallel box with the inverter and the battery module easily. What's more, BMS parallel box can also improve the battery durability. That's very easy to understand because when we have the more battery module, the single battery module's daily charge and discharge circuit will be reduced up to half of its before. And the fourth benefit here is it can mix the old and the new module. The BMS parallel box can automatically identify the old and the new battery pack and make them charge and discharge independently. What's more, I need to make some notice that here is about dual module backup. We need to notice that when the main battery group fails, the slave battery modules can work normally whether the main batteries group situation. But if the slave battery group fails, the main battery modules group should be connected to an inverter directly to make sure the normal operation of the whole system. The last thing is about the easier maintenance. This can be explained to two parts. First, the BMS parallel box have the ability to charge and control the system, and due to the interactive message, when there are some error happens, BMS parallel box will protect the whole system automatically, and after that, due to the remote upgrade and the remote monitoring function, our distributors can help customers to fix the question as soon as possible. Now let's jump into this agenda, and they can mainly divide into 6 parts. In the first sections, I will make an overview introduction of the Generation 2, including Generation 2's appearance, its liquid crystal display, and its size. When it comes to the second section, I will make a compare between the Generation 1 and the Generation 2. I believe after these sections, you will have a brief but comprehensive understanding of the Generation 2. In the section 3, I will introduce the terminal of the Generation 2, including its bottom side views and the right side views of the machine. In the fourth part, I will introduce the dual strings connection of the G2 system, including the T30 connection and T58 connection. The fifth part is about isolation, including the wiring and commission. And the last, I will refer to the warranting terms and condition for the G2 and T30 and T58. So let's start. First, just what I've talked just now. The Generation 2 can offer customers flexibility of connecting two battery strings in parallel. It can also optimize the battery capacities per inverter. And there are two connection options for the customer. One is the basic single string connection, and another is the dual string connection. Due to these two connections, connection options design, we can also know that both string group can work individually. G2 also has a total of 16 wireless power rating available, up from 3.0 kilowatts to 13.8 kilowatts. So it can cater to all kinds of application, including the residential, commercial, and industrial scenario. For Generation 1, it can just compatible with the T58 battery slave, but for the Generation 2, it can compatible with the both T30 and T58 series. So that means G2 can be used in more application. This is the appearance of the Generation 2. We can see there is the LCD indicators on the front side of the Generation 2. It has the message of the stage of the current and also shows G2 status. On the right side of Generation 2, there are a circuit breaker and the power switch. Due to this switch, we can control the Generation 2 directly, and there is also a DIP switch at here. This picture shows the size of the Generation 2. We can find the Generation 2 is a not very big machine. That means it will not occupy too much space in customer house. And we can also take a closer look on the LCD indicator at here. We can see that there are total 11 LED on this indicator. These blue and the red LED are used to show the SOC message, and the remaining three are used to show the status of the Generation 2. For the discharging mode, for example, if the SOC is 60% now, the first and the second light, the first, the second, and third light will be flash on and off with the limited inverter. But when it's for the charging mode, for example, if the FOC is still 60%, the first and the second light will keep on blue, and the third light will be flash on and off. If you are curious about this part, you can refer to our menu on our website. Now let's jump into the section 2. It's about the compares between the Generation 1 and the Generation 2. And I will talk 4 difference between these two generations. First is the different compatible battery. For Generation 1, it can just connect to the T58 sleeve. But for the Generation 2, it can connect to both T58 series and the T30 series. There are 3 things need to be mentioned here. So first, for the customer who have bought both the T58 master and T58 slave, if he want to choose the Generation 1, he have no choice but to west the T58 master and board another T58 slave. This will be cost the waste of the money. But if the customer choose the Generation 2, Generation 2 can connect to the T58 master directly, and all the battery he bought will not be waste. What's more, we all know that our company's T58 battery have the version 1 and the version 2. If the customer choose the Generation 1, it can only support the Generation 1 only can support the T58 version 1. And it's really hard to buy a T58 version 1 on the market now, so it will cause some problem here. But when it comes to the generation 2, the customer can choose both the T58 version 1 and version 2 and mix them up to use. The third things need to be mentioned is that if you're familiar with our company, you must know our new inverter X3 Ultra. It has 2 independent ports, and when we use the Ultra connected to 2 BMS parallel box, its total capacity will double up to 92.2 kWh. Now, the second difference between the generation 1 and the generation 2 is the bed ports. We can see that there are 2 SIM ports on the generation 1, but there is a main port. We can also call it a master port and the sleep port on the generation 2. When we compare these 2 different machines, we can find the ports on the interval port is the total same. But when it comes to the main port, we can see a CAN port in the main port, but only the RS485 in generation 1. That is due to when we connect the main port to the T30 master or T58 master, the protocol for these 2 batteries are all CAN. But when it comes to generation 1, it can only connect to the T58 sleep, and the protocol which the T58 sleep use is RS485. It's also important that we set another 2 ports, which is called the heat positive and heat negative on the sleep port. These 2 ports are set to realize the T30 automatic heating function. When we want to connect the sleep port to the T30 sleep, we need to combine the heat port and the bed port together, and they use the special cables to connect them to the T30 sleep. But don't worry, this special cable will be offered in our package. The third difference is whether the BMS is a must in this system. For the generation 1, it will act as a BMS for the whole system, so it's not need a BMS. And this is the diagram of the connection. We can know that the black, where a black cable means the power, a positive, negative power cable. The red line means the positive power cable, and the blue one means the communication cable. All the lines will be similar in the following webinar. And when it comes to the generation 2, BMS is indispensable if a dual string solution will be conducted. We can find that on the main group, the first battery must have the BMS. For the T30, it should be the first battery should be combinations of the T30 battery and T30 sleep. But for the T58 connection, the first battery should be the T58 master. And you can choose whether the T58 master version 1 or the T master version 2 here. But we recommend all the customers can choose the T58 master version 2 at here for the convenience upgrade. This is about the different technical data between the generation 1 and the generation 2. We can find under the same performance, the generation 1 have the better ingressive protection. That means the generation 1 can be used in more environments. And the generation 1 also have the ability to connect to the T30, which have the automatic heating function. So generation 1 can be also used in a cooler environment. Okay, let's jump into the third section, which is about the terminal of the generation 2. First, let's have a bottom view of the generation 2. We can see that there are 14 ports in all under the generation 2. That means we can finish all the connection under at the bottom side of the generation 2. This will make the whole system look tidy. And on the right side of the generation 2, we have the circuit breaker and power bottom at here. So the customer can control this generation 2 very easily. Next, let's talk about the dual string connection of the generation 2. This part will including the connection of the T30 and T58 both. First, let's have an overview of the connection. Just what I've talked about. The first battery on the mainstream must have a BMS. If you choose the G2 to paired with the T30, we need to use the combinations of the MC0600, which is a T30 BMS, and the H31023, which is a T30 slave. And this combination will act as a master battery here. What need to mention is that the T30 BMS can move to anywhere, and the slave battery who have the T30 BMS would be the master battery of this series. When we compare, when we pair the G2 with the T58, the T-BAT H5.8 will act the T58 master battery, and it should be the first battery here. All the remaining 7 batteries can be choose the T30 slave and T58 slave. We also need to note that only the same battery module series can be paralleled. If you want to parallel the T30 and T58, although the capacities of the two series is the same, it cannot be used. Okay, let's take a closer look on the T30 connection. As you can see, this is the system of 8 T30 battery module here. And when we compare the parameters of the slave and the main strings, we can find that they are totally same. And for the T30, it have the automating function, which means it will have a longer life. And there are some tips need to be mentioned here. The first, the battery module series of the 2 string should be the T30 slave. What's more, the each string should have an equal number of the battery. Last but not least, each string support up to 4 modules, and the whole system support up to 8 modules in total. X1 hybrid also supports 8 modules. But when it comes to the T58, as its name, it has a larger capacity. So if we want to use the X1 hybrid with the T58 battery, it only supports up to 3 modules per string and 6 modules in all. The rest things of the T58 connection is similar to the T30, so I will not talk too much at here. Okay, this page is also very interesting. It's about the T58 batteries upgrade capability. As these 2 pictures shows, if you choose the same versions T58, it can be connected very successful and work normally. But when it comes to the upgrade function, you need to mention the first battery on the mainstream. If you choose the version 2 T58 battery, it can upgrade both the battery for version 1 and version 2 T58. But if you choose T58 version 1 as the first as the T58 BMS, it can only upgrade the T58 version 1 slave, but not the version 2. But we also need to mention that this connection design does not affect the normal operation of the all battery modules and the system. So that means if a customer bought the batteries in this way, the whole battery system can still working normally. The 5th part is about isolation, including the wiring and the combination between the generation 2 and the inverter and the battery modules. Okay, we have seen this picture many times today, so I will not introduce it anymore. And okay, let's start from the connection between the generation 2 and the inverter. This connection is really easy. We just need to connect the corresponding port each other, and that should be finished. And what's more is about the connection between the T30 and the generation 2. First is about how to connect the communication cable. Just what I've talked before. When we connect the T30 to the when we connect the T30 to the generation 2, both the T30 master and slave use the communication protocol as the CAN. So we just need to use the CAN port on the generation 2. And when it comes to the power cable connection, first we need to connect the main ports to the T30 master. We just need to connect the same name ports together. And when we want to connect the T30 slave to the slave port on the generation 2, we need to first combine the bad positive and the hate positive together, and use these combinations to connect to the B plus on the T30 slave. The negative ports are also connecting this way. Okay, lastly, let's introduce the connection between the T58 and the generation 2. First is about the communication wire connection. Unlike the T58, unlike the T30, the T58 master used the protocol, used the communication protocol as CAN, but the T58 slave used the protocol as RS485. So please don't mix them up. And when it comes to the power cable connection, first about the main port on generation 2 is similar to the T30. We just need to connect the same name port together. And when it comes to the slave port, we need to connect the bad positive and bad negative to the plus and the X plonk for T58 slave and to T58 slave. Okay, so that's all the contents about the wiring. I think there are some names are not corresponded, but you do not worry about that because our company has a special design for the terminal. So that's impossible to insert the wrong cable in wrong port. Okay, let's talk about warranty terms and condition. For the BMS parallel box G2, it supports up to 5-year standard warranty. And when it's for the T30 and T58, they all support up to 10-year standard warranty. If you have any questions about that, please contact our sales team, and I think our professional team will give you a great answer about this part. Okay, lastly, please let me to introduce our SolaX academic here. On our website, we have the knowledge base and e-learning, and I promise if you curious about our company, our knowledge base and e-learning will help you to solve the most of the question here. And this is the QR code, and you can also use the address here to view our website. That's all the contents of today's webinar. Thank you for watching, and now I will check whether there's some remaining question here. Okay, today is Friday, so wish you have a good weekend first and keep safe.